Next speaker is Pat Farrow.
Morning. Okay. So you should have my testimony, one-page testimony, and some copies of graphs. For almost 10 years, I've been tracking CFS funding patterns. What I'll present today is evidence that patients are worse off in 2012 than in 1993. I expect you to look at these graphs. I expect you to walk away with some history of NIH activity. My hope is to further your understanding of the need for fundamental change within the NIH. I do not hold anyone here responsible for what happened in 2000 or 2001 or 2002. That would be silly. I do hold people accountable for understanding that patients see a pattern. And after 11 years, I see a pattern. That's what we're going to look at. Chart number 1. This is extracted from the GAO report. I better read, not look here. Okay, extracted from the GAO report. It shows intramural and extramural funding as well as cooperative agreements. On page 46 to page 52 of the GAO report, that was issued June 2000, investigators present a rationale for why some projects were excluded from CFX expenditures while others were included. So, for example, they got all the information from the NIH, allowed primary CFS grants, didn't allow sub-projects, didn't allow double reporting, or whatever. They had a long process, and it's explained on page 46 to 52. Overall, the GAO concluded that the NIH was actively pursuing CFS research despite the flatline spending from 1996 through 1999. You can see that on the graph. Interesting, the GAO report says, despite its varied efforts, the intramural program on CFS at NIAID is currently inactive. NIAID's primary CFS investigator has recently moved elsewhere in the agency. We were told that no one else has yet indicated an interest in developing work in this area. That's drug code page 22. So this is a starting point. And if you note on here that we're about $7 million in 1999, go to the second chart, and you'll see two lines, line chart. The blue line is NIH reported levels of CFS expenditures, 2000 to 2010. In 1999, we saw the $7 million. And that was, again, after they excluded and included and did all of the reasoning for getting the figures that they did. Within the next 11 years, you see this kind of spiral downward from 2000 to 2008. There's no intramural CFS expenditure. It appears that the CFS intramural program remained inactive. The bounce in 2009 to over $6 million, and then again in 2010 is due to studies on intramural pathogen. Well, there's one extramural, but two extramural pathogens to include XMRV. So that's good, and you can see that things are coming together. Some of that's due to better reporting through the NIH reporter, a fairly good tool. You notice the sources on here. This chart needs probably to be looked at in more detail, but I don't have the time to explain. You can see that there's the black line down here is that's from FOIA data. I didn't make that up. It's from sources I got from NIH, and I went through. I've testified many times about this process to exclude.
1 minute.
To exclude those studies that were not primary CFS, et cetera. And, there's this big discrepancy. That sort of remains elusive why that's there. But nonetheless, that's that history. I think the third graph is probably the most significant. And that is blue lines, red lines. Blue lines, reported CFS expenditure. Red lines, little bars. Those are the new grants for each year. I wanted you to look at 2002. It shows on both graphs that there's just one new grant and there's $7 million of expenditure. Something happened in 2002. I've said it every year I've come here to testify. Well, we know that NIAID turned over CFS. It was a meeting May 2002. I have the meeting minutes, and that's in my testimony. And the other thing is, from 2002 to 2006, we inherited like 6 grants that had nothing at all to do with CFS, and I've got this from the NIH, but were actually chalked up to CFS expenditure. You'll have to study this
we're at
in
the
more
end.
detail. The last page, this is from the GAO report. You'll have to look at it again. These are all projects that were reported to the GAO that NIH started. You can have to again go look at it in some detail. The very last thing is I know. In 2010, you'll notice a discrepancy. That's because the NIH reporter is underreporting. They're missing a $700,000 grant for 5-year grant from an Ohio State researcher, and it's not there under categorical spending. So
This is.
I understand.
It's not fair to the other speakers. Thank you very much.